Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon. Let's have some fun. This story is brought to you by Kay. I lifted my mother's rucksack into the back of my parents' pickup truck, kissed her goodbye, and waved as the truck headed off, taking her to South America to help my father with his archaeological dig, studying the megaliths of Easter Island. She would be gone for 4 weeks, and although at 15 I was old enough to stay behind and not travel with her for the first time, it had been made quite clear to me that my 19-year-old sister Beverly was definitely in charge. What she hadn't reckoned with was that as soon as the pickup left our driveway, Carl, Beverly's boyfriend, pulled into the driveway in his beat-up van. "Hello, short stuff," he said as he roughed my hair. Beverly came out carrying her own rucksack. She had already cleared it with me that for the next month she would be touring with the band Carl and 2 of their friends had go together. She had toured the previous year with the band when I was with my parents in China on that year's dig, even though they had expressly forbid it. I had found out from my friend Mark, who had seen them playing at a holiday park he and his family had gone to. I hadn't exactly blackmailed my sister during the previous year, but my parents did notice that she had been volunteering with the chores more often, which led them to believe she had grown more mature. So when the subject of the arrangements for this year's summer came up, they were happy to leave her in charge, and I was able to arrange very favorable terms with Beverly, whilst feigning distress at being left alone. "Chris, I hope I can trust you as we agreed. Here's all the money Mum left us, remember? This is our secret. Don't burn the house down." At that, she jumped into the van and waved to me until she was out of sight. Machiavelli couldn't have do better. I had the house to myself for weeks. My sister in my debt, and more than enough money for my own little plans. I walked back to the house and forced myself to sit and watch television. I had convinced myself someone would return, having forgotten something, or to tell me plans had changed and they would not be away for the summer. After 3 hours of nervous tension pacing about the house with an excited, hollow feeling in my stomach, Beverly rang to tell me they had arrived at the coast at the club they would be playing at for the next week and to check everything was okay with me. I rang the airport and confirmed my mother's flight had left on time. At last, I felt calm enough to begin. I picked up the phone again and with my most pleasant voice arranged an appointment at the beauty parlor for first thing the next day. I'm sure my voice was shaking almost as much as my hands. By now it was early evening. I decided to start my preparations. Over the past few months, I had been secretly concealing small items that belonged to my mother and sister. Now I arranged them on my dresser. Pairs of stocking for the laundry basket, almost finished cosmetics from the bathroom, small things which would not be missed, and stored them in my hiding place under the floor, boards in my bedroom. I undressed and examined myself in the mirror. All was quite short, even for my age, whilst my friends at school were rocketing up. I was only about 5'3", about average weight, but I didn't look stocky compared to other short boys. I had let my mousy brown hair grow long so that it just reached my shoulders. I suppose I did look slightly girlish, not unlike some of the members of popular boy bands. I had a small tuft of downy hair on my chin and upper lip, also under my arms, so I applied some depilatory cream Elle had acquired and rubbed it into my skin and stepped into the shower, letting the hot water flood over my body. All night, I had hardly slept. I was so excited. For the next few weeks, I was going to be Christine. I woke the next day a full hour before I had set the alarm clock, and for a short while just lay there with a beaming smile on my face rising. I showered again and wrapped myself in a big fluffy robe and had some breakfast. Then I entered the sanctuary of my sister's room. Not that this was the first time. I had reconnoitered the room many times and tried on almost every piece of clothing my sister owned. But this time, I was considering what to wear to go out and function in the world as a woman. Firstly, I opened her underwear drawer and selected a pair of white satin panties, stepped into them, and slipped them over my smooth, hairless legs, taking care to tuck my manhood between my legs. Then, with some difficulty, I put on a matching wonder bra and surveyed myself in the mirror pretty cute. My sister's not particularly well endowed, and so the bra fit me well, pushing up some of my chubby chest to give a slight cleavage. Moving over to her dressing table, I was pleased to see she had left lots of her cosmetics behind. My skin is good, so Elle only applied a light dusting of powder to my face, pink glossy lipstick, and some discreet mascara on my eyes. Then dressed in a pair of black, stretch hipster jeans and a short-length white lace blouse, which showed my bare midriff as well my white bra underneath. What I needed now was some shoes. These I would borrow from my mother, as hers were a much better fit. I decided on a pair of strappy black wedge shoes, which went well with my jeans, also a single-breasted velour coat and a slim silver watch. Suddenly, I realized the time I had to rush if I was to make the appointment at the beauty parlor. I grabbed a spare handbag, filled it with a few items I might need, had one final check in the mirror, and rushed out, hurrying down the street in such a frenzy that it wasn't until I reached the main road the enormity of what I was doing hit me and I began to panic. An old man was walking slowly up towards me. My mind was rushing and everything around me seemed to be going in slow motion. What was I doing? I could be arrested. Perhaps I had fooled myself and I looked like a clown. I began to have a panic attack. The old man stopped and put his hand on my arm. "Are you all right, miss? You look very flushed. Do you need to sit down?" I regained my composure and smiled at him and told him I was okay, that I was just in a rush. He smiled back and told me to take care. It was his smile that reassured me the most. It was so warm and caring that it boosted my confidence. Walking along, I began to lift my head and look people in the eye and smile almost every time the other person smiled back with my nerves. Reducing, I began to concentrate more on my deportment, taking smaller steps, keeping my head up and not slouching. I had hoped that an early morning appointment would mean the beauty parlor would be quiet, however. When I arrived, it seemed full. I gave my name to the receptionist and was offered a seat, taking care to sit demurely with my legs crossed at the ankle. I inspected the beauty parlor, a place I had often dreamed of entering, as I made my way home from school. It was decorated in style, soft, deep carpet, dainty wallpaper, and luxurious furnishings. Quite a step up from the local barber I had previously frequented. Soft music played in the background. Several customers lounged about while they were preened and made over. A young lady who introduced herself as Sally escorted me to a chair in front of a mirror. I told Sally I had a very important interview for a job in the city, and that I wanted the full works: a manicure, a facial stylish hair, a more glamorous image. Sally suggested a new hair color and showed me a picture of a model with blonde hair and a very sculptured layered haircut that would be perfect for my facial structure and easy to manage. I gushed that I couldn't possibly carry off such a dramatic look, but Sally was so forceful, insisting that this look would get me the job and the man, that I agreed. "Christine," she began, "it's delightful to have an attractive young woman in here for once with the balls to go for something different." I blushed little did she know what she was saying, and muttered an embarrassed thank you. Not only was I easily passing as a girl, I was passing as a pretty one. "Are you ready to begin?" I managed another pleasant smile. "Okay." My hair was washed and he put in layers of foil with the chemical which would make me blonde. My skin was treated to a variety of ointments and creams. A manicurist fitted extensions, filed, sanded, and painted my fingernails. My face was painted, brows plucked. Finally, everything was complete. I looked mirror. I looked chic and feminine instead of a 15-year-old boy. I looked an attractive woman in her 20s. Sally put her head on my shoulder and I looked at her in the mirror. "Forget the city," she said. "You should take up modeling." As I left the parlor, my whole spirit was lifted. Now to have some fun, time to go shopping. It sounds stupid now, but when the assistant at the first department asked me what size I was, I had no idea. I had only worn my mother's or sister's clothes, and I had never bothered to check the sizes. Being small, their clothes tended to be big on me. Honesty being the best policy, I told her I didn't know that it was ages since I had last bought anything. I didn't reveal that the last item I had bought was a football shirt. With the efficiency of a professional who spotted a saleswoman's dream, the assistant produced a tape measure from nowhere and proceeded to take my measurements. After about an hour of trying on clothes, I decided on elegant sleeveless black dress, a blue-fitted jacket collarless with a matching skirt, and a whole collection of underwear, blouses, tights, and stockings. The department store had been quite conservative, so when I left there, I headed for an area of town that had the more trendy clothes shops. With all the excitement of shopping for Christine, for the first time, I went a little mad and spent far more than I had planned, especially at the last shop I visited. It was all chrome and glass, very minimalist, with staff who looked like they had come from the pages Vogue. It was foolish. I had already spent far more than I could afford, but I fell in love with a short, leather mini skirt which would look fantastic with some boots and patterned tights I had bought earlier. One of the girls came across and asked if everything was okay. I explained that I wanted the skirt, but that it was terribly expensive. "Try it on," she said. I explained I'd like to see it with the tights and boots. "No problem, you can take as long as you like." To my surprise, the assistant followed me to the changing room and started to help me dress. She was very chatty and quite forward, opening each one of my bags while I changed, commenting on each of my purchases, even asking if she could try on the black dress I had bought earlier. Not waiting for an answer, proceeded to start changing in the same cubicle. She introduced herself as Wendy and started gossiping about working at the shop and her boyfriend as if we were old friends. Dressed, we went out to the shop to scrutinize our appearances. Wendy stood back. "Girl, you look foxy." I looked in the mirror and struck a pose. I did look hot. The other assistants came round and flustered over me. If it was a sales ploy, it certainly worked at that moment. I would have given all the money I had for the dress. "This dress and me, it's fate. I'll take it." I said. Wait, before you change." Wendy ran off behind the counter and produced a Polaroid camera and took a picture of me, then handed the camera to one of the assistants. "Take one of both of us." Another 4 pictures of various combinations of assistants and me took place, with lots of laughing and hugging taking place. This seemed like a great place to work. We then changed back, and I prepared to pay for the mini skirt. "I have an idea," said Wendy. "I know you're worried about the cost. Take the skirt on approval, and if you're free tomorrow about lunchtime, come in, and I might have a proposal for you. Won't you get it to trouble with the boss, and how can you be sure you can trust me to come back? Firstly, if you hadn't noticed, I'm still wearing your dress, which I seriously like, and secondly, I am the boss." We shook hands on it with a grin. Hours of shopping in heels was starting to take its toll on my legs, and so I treated myself to a taxi home. As I walked up to my door and realized in my rush to leave that morning I had forgotten my keys. What could I do? I checked to see if I had left a window open, but no luck. I knew the neighbors had a spare key for emergencies, but I could hardly ask them for it, dressed as I was. I had to be cool. I had to stop acting like a boy. I was living this summer as a woman, an adult, on my own. What would my mother do? Get the yellow pages, call out a locksmith? There was a phone in the local petrol station. At first, the locksmith said it would be 4 hours before he could reach me, but when I put on my sexiest voice and told him I was a girl, all alone, and scared and pleaded with him to help a damsel in distress, he said he would put back his other calls and be with me in 20 minutes. I was certainly learning there are a lot of advantages to being a girl. I almost cheered when I saw the van approaching the house. Dave, as he later introduced himself, was tall and thin, wearing jeans and a scruffy t-shirt. He waved hello with an impish smile as he opened the van's side door and took out a leather utility belt crammed with numerous tools. A simple lockout is," he asked. "If you could just show me some ID, I'll have you opened up in a second, a driving license or anything official to prove you live here." Once again, I hadn't planned ahead. Dave suggested I must have something in my handbag. As I looked, panicking, I dropped the handbag. I'd only been blonde for about 7 hours, but I must have looked the dizziest of dizzy blondes. Looking at the mess on the floor, I froze, the only idea in my mind to run. Dave stooped down and scooped the contents back into the bag whilst selecting an official-looking card of some sort. Sandra Brown, a member of the local university's Archaeological Association. He read, "Looks and intelligence, this could be my lucky day." He winked. His lucky day. That, as I later discovered, was the only piece of ID in my mother's bag without a photo. While I finished tidying the bag, Dave moved over to the door, removed a metal card, and quicker than I can with a key opened the door and let himself, "In white with sugar, my coffee," he said as he disappeared heading towards the kitchen. By the time I arrived, he had made himself comfortable. "What about your other jobs?" I asked. "Minimum call-out fees for half an hour. You've still got time to have your wicked way with me if you want." As I made the coffee, Dave flirted with me outrageously. He sipped the coffee, holding it with two hands, staring at me over the top of the cup. More than once I caught him ogling me when he thought I wasn't looking. I was having fun, but I was tired and didn't want things getting out of hand. He was starting to try his luck, complimenting me on my perfume and leaning over me to smell it. He had just taken hold of my hand to look at the ring I was wearing when his mobile phone rang. It was his boss, and it sounded as if he was being told off. Dave's manner had certainly become a lot more sheepish. "Oh, I've got to go," he said. "But I'll be around tomorrow to drop off the bill." I showed him out. I was sure he could have billed me there and then. He just wanted a reason to come back. I put the chain on the door with renewed vigor. One thing I need was an unofficial visit from Dave. After showering, I fell into bed naked, and despite aching feet and a racing mind reliving the adventures of my first day, I felt into a deep, deep sleep. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for early access and exclusive content.